I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that change lives forever. Hello, my friends. I am here with my friend Cory, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
We have known each other. I was trying to think about this before we started recording. I think 2008.
It's been a long time. Yeah. I don't know a year actually, but
I want to
we'll
say
go
it
with
was
2008.
I think it was 2008, and it was almost 2009 because I think I met you on New Year's Eve at a friend's place. Like we went out and then we had like a New Year's Eve party at a friend's place, and I think that's where we actually met.
Was it or was it a dinner? I feel like it was a
It
dinner.
was a dinner that turned into New Year's Eve.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's where we met.
So that's
So,
at least with my 41-year-old brain, that's what I'm remembering. So it's been a long time, and since then we've gone to adult summer camp together
we have.
and cruise. So we've run the crazy times.
I know. It's been a while, man. Like I'm you're 41, I'm 39. I'm about to hit the 40. But but yeah, time just keeps going, man.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, I appreciate you being on the Life Shift podcast. I think what's interesting about your story, which I'm not going to divulge or I'm trying not to give away the secrets, but what's interesting is that I think your story will resonate with a lot of people that are maybe kind of feeling stuck in what they're doing on a regular basis. Maybe I gave away too much there, but I think it's interesting to have you here in which I don't know your pivotal moment, but I know the beginning, the before and after. So before we get there, I think it's helpful to kind of set the scene of like what was your life like before you made the shift that you're eventually going to talk about. What was life like for you?
Yeah, so I was working in law enforcement, and so I got to say, like, kind of how I got there in the first
Mm-hmm.
place, I guess I could
Yeah.
say. And when it really starts like in college. Um, my it was literally 9/11 that changed my direction and where I
Yeah.
wanted to go. I was a freshman in college, and my dad was a law enforcement officer in Miami, and I
At the time.
always yes,
Okay.
yes, and growing up when I was growing up,
Right.
so I always had thought like that was the direction I was going to go. Like I had found like a third grade poster where it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like everyone kind of writes it. So whatever their mom or dad did. So I wrote
Right.
like what my dad did, law enforcement, and so it was kind of like always in my head. But then like as I got into high school, I realized my mom didn't want me to go in that direction. My dad, he was like, yeah, it's a good career if you want to go in that direction. And but I was really involved with computers.
Mm-hmm.
Loved computers. Uh, my uncle showed me a way like how to program. Like, and this is like before the internet computers. And I programmed in a language called QBasic that was standard in Microsoft operating systems. So my uncle showed me how to get there, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And so I had this idea when I wanted to get into computers, and so I always had them both like in my head. But and then in college I went to UCF, and I went in for computer science my
Okay.
freshman year, and it was September my freshman year. 9/11 happened, and I decided to shift to law enforcement from that. And because I just felt like um, that was my original calling,
Right.
and I always wanted to follow that passion. And but the computers always stuck with me
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. Like I always was doing um, in my free time, making programs, trying to
Right.
learn it and stuff like that. And so it always stayed with me. So,
Did you switch your degree from computer science?
yes, I switched it from computer science to criminal justice with a minor in computer science. So I
Okay.
switched the majors, but I
Right.
minored in computer science because I
Got it.
was taking classes. So I did eventually get a minor. And I was out of college in 4 years. And luckily, I was lucky enough to get right into law enforcement. There was a couple moves where I was noticed because I had gone into this, I applied for this academy run by the state,
Mm-hmm.
and I went up to Jacksonville to try out. I actually got accepted. They gave me like the congratulations letter, but they also lost their funding that year. um, but because of that, I was able to get like a recruit, get into like a recruiter, and got in with local law enforcement agency here in Orlando. And so I was lucky enough to get right into it, and a great job. I enjoyed doing it like
Yeah.
for a long time. Like I did it for 13 years.
You were in a
And
special area too. Were you always, you weren't like working the street, were you?
correct. Well, kind of. I was so initially I was trained to be just like a road unit. Then I went into field training where I trained other officers
Mm-hmm.
when they came on. And then I went to a unit called Street Crimes, where we had unmarks. We had uniforms, but we were in unmarks. And I kind of went, throughout different areas of the sheriff's office. But I was feeling like I was kind of stuck in the same spot. And I didn't, and I had this feeling that I didn't want to move up. Um, but I felt like I needed to move forward in some way.
Yeah.
And I didn't know which way that was, whether that would be within law enforcement or not within law enforcement.
How many years were
And
you into it by this point that you're kind of like well, like how many
so,
years into it were you like, is this all that's, is this all I'm doing?
yeah. So it was probably 7 or 8 years into it
Okay.
that these thoughts of like, is this really what I want to do for 30 years?
Right.
Um, I felt like the world was obviously changing in that, you know, there's so much to do out there. There's so much to experience and do out there that almost like staying in one place is kind of like I'm trapping myself
Mm-hmm.
into this one expertise. And don't get me wrong, like I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't boring.
Right.
We got to do some crazy different things, but at the same time, I felt like I was trading especially when I was getting up there. That was really was really trading my safety for money.
Yeah.
Um, and
You
I
know, it's,
loved it. Yeah, go ahead.
what's interesting about law enforcement to me now that you're mentioning this, and I don't think I've ever thought about it before. I feel like it's one of the current careers, or like one of a few current careers in which it's very much like the olden days when someone starts in a job and then they retire from said job. Whereas our generation growing up, I think we're more inclined to kind of do a bunch of things. So
Mhm.
it feels almost old fashioned in a way, like law enforcement, in a sense that people just start there and then they end there. Like that's it. So
Yeah, I
you
mean,
were probably
even
feeling that, like, oh, I'm supposed to do this.
yeah, well,
Did your dad retire from it, like at
yeah,
a
my dad
older age?
retired from it. In the middle of his career, he became a fireman
Mm-hmm.
for,
Yeah,
but I think he was the only one who went from a cop to a fireman back to a cop.
yeah,
And I had asked him, I asked him, and he said it was because it's like, well, it was like I felt more bored being a fireman. Like I didn't be able to go out and
right,
do as much stuff as I wanted to do. So
right.
that's why he went back. And so, me, I was getting to that point where yeah, even in private business, I mean, think of how much private business they used to have retirement
Mm-hmm.
within the business,
Right.
and now that's kind of
Right.
pretty much gone away.
Yeah.
And government jobs are kind of the only jobs that have pensions still, and even them are kind of backing away from that and going towards more like investment accounts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
So you
so
were
I,
probably like
absolutely.
30 and going like, okay, is this what I'm doing for the rest of my life?
Yeah, it was about there. um and And you said in the beginning, you were like, what was that pivotal moment? And it wasn't like there was several like moments, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one.
Yeah.
And like even the first time I tried to leave, I failed. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
And it it was quite dramatic too. Like literally I was gonna partner with another guy in web development, and I was gonna help him build websites and stuff like that. And the day, literally the day that I was supposed to leave the job, he called me up and he said that it wasn't going to work out. And I was kind of like, what? I'm like, I'm leaving today. And it was rough. Like, I had to literally, to keep my job, I had to petition the sheriff himself to sign something, which he did.
Yeah.
Luckily, he was there that day.
I was just kidding.
And
I'm not really leaving. It was a joke, guys.
no, like I think people get it.
Yeah.
It's like they see what other people are trying to do. I've seen there's a lot of cops that go out, and there's a lack of personnel in law enforcement now, and they've I, I've heard, I wasn't reached out, but some people were reached out to come back, like
Yeah.
if, once they left, especially if they were they didn't have anything on the record or anything. I the only thing that I got in trouble for was starting a business um, without informing them properly. Um,
Interesting. Was there
so that's
was there
yeah.
something
Go
that
ahead.
happened at work that was like, okay, this is the time for me to leave to do this business with that didn't end up working out? But was there something like, or was it just like always kind of you're working towards that first time, your first failed time?
Yeah, there was when I that's kind of what I was getting at. I had made a web app
Mm-hmm.
where like it was kind of like a prototype to do like a regular app, where the idea was where you could donate to homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see people on the side of the road like begging.
Right.
And I had this idea. I was like, well, what happens if you want to give to them, but you're like on the other side of the road? So I had this idea of like them holding up like kind of like a hashtag or something, or a little
A
link
QR
where
code.
you could yeah, where you could donate to them. Um, and I kind of posted it on Facebook once I created it, and a reporter from the news like reached out to me and wanted to do an interview. And yeah, so it ended up they came back to the sheriff's office because I literally had to like ask them for permission to do
Right.
an interview with the news.
Right.
So that's when it came forth that I would like had a business. um, and I didn't like properly notify them, but they so I kind of got like paperwork on for doing that. And then that was kind of the moment where I was like, maybe you know having different ideas and trying to go forward with the ideas, and then having my employer say, you know, no,
Right.
like that's kind of the turning point where I'm like, maybe I should, go somewhere else where, I could have this kind of stuff and start new ideas
Right.
and go from there.
Yeah, because I feel like you've always, or since I've known you, it's you always have a new idea. Maybe not always, but there's right like, hey, I'm trying this now, and you're not someone that's afraid of trying something that you're not familiar with. Like you're just like,
Yeah.
this is really cool. I'm gonna try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's one of the things I've learned. I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like Oprah or someone that said, the reason I'm here is because I failed more than you.
Yeah.
It was, so I get it, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, they tried more. And, when I was young, my mom, had wanted me to go to gymnastics, and I did that for a while. And then I went into, and I'm naturally, I call myself naturally shy, but I had to learn to be more extroverted.
Right.
And so, when I was in high school, my English teacher approached me to be a cheerleader for the high school because they do competitive co-ed cheerleading.
Right.
And I was like, at first I said no, and then I thought about it, and I eventually got into it. And like, I never wanted attention brought to me, especially as a kid. And that was kind of like the ultimate push into the spotlight.
Right. Yeah.
And so it ended up I was pretty good at it. And then I got into scholarship, went to UCF on scholarship for cheerleading. We competed, we won. There was a lot of great things that I got out of that. And that was kind of like my first big lesson of like, just get out there, and who knows what you're good at.
Right. What's interesting about cheerleading, and I can't believe that I actually forgot about that because I feel like it's such a large portion of your like formative years. But what's interesting about
Yeah.
like competitive cheerleading is that unlike developing an app or something on the computer, like if you mess up, everyone sees it. Like your failure is on full display if there's a mistake or anything like that. And so going from an introverted type person to being like, I'm putting it all out there. Here it is. That's a
Yeah.
big step.
Oh yeah. And yeah, it one year in college, like I got sick like the day before competition. And the competition is really intense because it's you work pretty much a whole year to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if you mess up, you tumble in the rankings. If one person messes up, you tumble in the
Right.
rankings. And we're trying to win, of course.
Right.
And then on top of that, it's broadcasted on ESPN.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of pressure. It's the lights are on you, literally. And one year, like it's like a stomach virus, and and it was like the day before, and I don't know if it was from like the nerves or from I actually got
Mm-hmm.
like something. Um, and I remember my coach coming to see me, and she was like, "Just want to let you know a few things. Um, you're going to be on the floor because it's like there's no turning back." Um, but and then she reassured me. She's like, you could do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And we actually had we actually did a really good job. Like, luckily I didn't mess up. I was on the floor 2 times at the collegiate level, and luckily I did great both times.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a lot of life lessons in that.
Yeah. I was
And
gonna say, do you think that your experiences in competitive cheerleading helped you like with your current projects and with wanting to venture out and those kind of things? Do you think it set up some qualities in you that were different from when you were growing up?
yeah, absolutely. Like, because I didn't want to, I kind of want to just walk the path. That was kind of, what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's where
Like
I'm
the
going.
rest of us.
Exactly. Like we all feel it.
Yeah.
We feel pressure from every
I think our
from
generation
society, from
especially. Yeah. I
yeah,
think hopefully the newer generations feel a little bit more inclined to kind of follow their passion and do whatever life is intending for them. Whereas when we were growing up, it was like you got to do well here so that you can do well here so that you can get a good job, et cetera, et cetera.
exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it was like that with my parents. They're pretty strict, and they kind of had that set. They were like, you're going to go to
Mm-hmm.
college. And I'm like 6, and I'm like, okay, I don't really know what that means, but okay. And and so that was always the path. And I was a good at the time, like kind of like a follower. I was like, okay, I keep my head down,
Mm-hmm.
do what I'm supposed to do, and keep going. But yeah, doing in cheerleading, you know, my parents were always, my parents were always very supportive of whatever I did, and that was like a big test because I came home one day and I was like, decided to go into cheerleading. And like, it was kind of like a silence. And they were both like, okay, that's good. It wasn't a big
Yeah,
deal.
that's
And
cool.
they signed off on it and they supported me,
Yeah.
and they came to all the competitions, and my other family came out. And so I had a lot of support there. And so, yeah, so to answer your question, after that, you know, I was always kind of thinking, I'm like, does it have to be done this way? Can I go in a different direction? You know, and then I always had to think, like, let's say I couldn't do this, you know, would I still be successful? And
After that first
yeah,
trying to get out moment, is that what you're talking about? Okay.
yeah. And I remember talking to somebody in college, um, and it's kind of like this conversation. And she said to me, she was like, you know, if so far in my life, it's been going pretty well that, you know, I think I could do anything. And I just thought about that, and I'm like, yeah, if you're, I think we sometimes get in our heads and thinking like, oh, this is like the only way I could go. I'm not going to be able to do anything else. But once you really believe that, I think you want to start doing other things or looking out what else is out there, trying new things. I mean, that's how I felt.
Yeah. Well, I've always
So
kind of seen you as like, I mean, if this doesn't work out, so what? Like there's always something
yeah,
else.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't think that a lot of people feel that way. I think there's a lot of people that, like you, were really into computers and whatever, and now they're like accountants and like still love computers but are too afraid to kind of take that next step. So you mentioned you tried to get out. That was the first time you tried to get out. So how many times did it
Correct.
take? Because I mean, surprise, you're out.
Yeah. So of course, not law enforcement anymore, but um, excuse me.
I'll cut that out.
Um, no problem. Yeah. So it was 2 times, and the second time, the second time was going to be like a dramatic shift. So I was going to do reserve,
Mm-hmm.
which I did actually. And the plan was that, because at the end of the day, if you don't have money coming in, hopefully you have money saved,
Right.
um, which I did. But also, it's just money that's just getting, you know, just
Right.
leaving.
There's no
There's no,
replenishment.
it's just it's a free fall almost. It's kind of like you see, it's a free fall. So I tried to mitigate that as much as possible. And I said, what am I good at? What are people willing to pay me to do right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I went into reserves where I could do off duty work still. There's a certain amount of times that you have to work, volunteer your time to work, but then you could do off duty work. So then it's not such a free
Right.
fall. Then I can have it still, it's not like the full amount,
Right.
but it's still a check coming
Right.
in. But it still gives me the freedom to do what I want. That was the mentality I
Right.
had. That was the
It's kind
plan.
of like a
I was like,
buffer.
oh yeah, look, correct. Oh, it'll give me so much more time to work on what I want to do, and then do this as well. Um, and at first, I was gonna hire. I'm sorry, I was gonna rely more on doing that, the reserve work,
Right.
because that I could get a lot more money that way. But then I kind of stayed there, and I didn't. I would just work there, and I would kind of find myself in another rut. So it's kind of like I pivoted, and then you kind of get another rut. Then you got to keep. Then I pivoted again. so I found a friend of mine was working for this company that they worked with software. They created software for law enforcement companies. And he had mentioned it before. And then I had met him again when I was in this position. And he's like, "What are you doing now?" And I told him, and I was like, with the intention of, running my own business one day. And so he's like, we need somebody like you in our job. And I was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you mind if like talking to my boss? Because we're a small company. We're only like 10 people. And, we need somebody like you who knows law enforcement and software." So I ended up talking to the CEO, and they were like this national company that provides software to law enforcement agencies across the country. Ended up, he like hired me on the spot. He's like, because I told him my background, training software, and I used to train law enforcement officers. So he hired me right on the spot in a sales position though. And it's funny. It's like, that was, I realized how much that mattered in starting your own business too. And was really one of the keys that I was missing to do what I want to do, because I knew how to do it. I knew how to provide the service, but I didn't know sales and marketing. So that was another pivot.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, it's not kind of like this just 90-degree turn. It's like kind of like, okay, let's go in this direction. Right. And you go in a slightly different, and then pivot again, steps. And then pivot again.
Yeah, you're taking your steps to get to that eventual level that you want to be on.
Correct. Yeah. And it was great. It was super valuable. I learned sales. Like my boss, he was in sales for years. And he told me like all the lingo and stuff, which is important.
Right.
That's important because I think words kind of help you see it and stuff. Like a lead versus a prospect versus a client. Like that was all new to me when I came in. I was in public, I wasn't in private. So now I was in this, private realm. And keep in mind, like at this time, I created my company back in 2009, but that was not for the intention of leaving anything. That was just to do side work, just to get a few extra bucks.
And just so everyone knows, like what was the intent of your company? Like, what were you intending to offer? Or what do you offer?
Yeah, so my company was started by Marcelo and me. Marcelo is my longtime friend. I knew him since like middle school. And since the day I met him, he always wanted to be a film director. So in order to get there, he had to do video work, like a lot of video work, video editing, video shooting. And that's kind of that's what he was doing as his 9-to-5. So he was more graphics design, video, and I was more web and actually audio. Like I love to mess around with audio as well on the side. So that was the intention. We had like this combination of things that we were both good at. He was more creative. I was logical. And so I would feel like it's a good match because it's like stuff we're both missing with each other. And then, so we were able to do websites. People needed websites, and then just stuff on the side, videos. And I was passionate about I loved creating software and stuff like that. So that's eventually where it led to, for me, creating websites for businesses. Something now I do all the time, and I love doing it, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to understand that really that stems from that passion that you had as a kid, like learning QBasic on your computer that had, maybe before dial-up, your MS-DOS coding.
I know, and I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this about it. It's really funny because I thought I was really good at it. And literally, there was no internet. This was pre-internet. Right. So in order to understand how the code was, everything, all the documentation was in like, if you press F1, it's on like the help file. That's where all it was. So I would be like reading all that. and I created like games. I created like simple where the computer had almost like an artificial intelligence. It wasn't artificial intelligence, but it seemed like it to me. And I thought I was like awesome at this. I was like, wow, I'm incredible. Then the internet came out and I realized that you could download what other people have made. So I went on this website, I downloaded, and this kid was probably like, I think he was like younger than me. And I ran his program and it rendered a picture of himself, which is like this is before you could download,
Right.
you know, this is before we had digital cameras, really, before like we had scanners. And I was like, I realized I'm like, I know nothing.
I know this much,
but
it probably made you want to learn
yeah,
more. I feel like that's probably
absolutely
kicked your butt. And what's interesting about your story is that, like, as a kid, you had, you know, this strong interest in computers, but then you also had your dad in law enforcement and an area that you felt like you wanted to go into. And it's now your life has been divvied up into, I did that. Now I can focus on the other part that I was super passionate about. And how many people have these passions that they never pursue because they feel like they have to go the traditional route or the family route or whatever was intended for them, that was written in the cards, if you will. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would talk to guys. There's some guys, you know, that were in law enforcement that are like, oh man, you know, I wish I could do something else. Mm-hmm. And so I'd ask them. I said, well, what can you do?
Right.
Yeah, what is something that someone's gonna pay you for besides this? And they're like, kind of. Some people would be like, oh, I could do this, could do that. Some people were like, I kind of just dropped all my hobbies, mm-hmm. you know, just focus on this. But now they're not happy, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's important to keep up with stuff that you are passionate about, whether that is going to turn into a job or not. I feel like now, like I have hobbies now that I do that I don't want to get paid for.
Right.
You know,
because you don't want to hate them.
And then well, yeah, I mean, and some could turn out that way, but some like what I do now, building websites for businesses in a sense where I could do it all day long and I don't hate it. You know, it's just, I enjoy it.
What makes you want to pursue that over the other hobbies that you enjoy just as much? Like why web development?
A couple things. First, I feel like it's valued in this day and age. Mm-hmm. And so people will pay for it. That's one. And it's something that I'm passionate about,
right.
You know? So, like, for example, nowadays I do improv, right?
It's hard to make money in that.
Yeah. I mean, I like doing it just to like get away from things, but do I want to be an actor? No. You know, I just enjoy doing it without having that. Because, you know, there's some things I talk with this about my friend all the time where, you know, he teaches improv and he's like, you know, if somebody were to pay me for this, I don't know if I'd like it so much, you know?
Yeah.
So there's always that balance and you never know kind of sometimes until it actually happens.
Do you think that you enjoy what you're doing more now because of the experience you had as a law enforcement officer? Do you think like having to go through that and realizing like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life makes you like what you do now even more?
Yes. I had never liked the idea as an adult of telling another adult, like requesting for time off, asking for permission. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like I'm like, can we be over that already? Like, hey, I'm sick today. I'm just not coming in.
Why are you sick?
Like, and they're like, oh, you have to do a request. No, they didn't ask why. Okay. Like, they didn't ask why. You could literally say that and they'll be like, okay, then everybody would be cool with it. but the form is called a request. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like these undertones of we are controlling your life in a way. And I never liked that. I never liked the idea of having to give away all my freedom for a little bit of money. I felt like it's a bad time.
Yeah. I'm only laughing or giggling over here because that was literally your job, was policing other people, and you yourself felt like you were being policed.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, but aren't we all
Right.
aren't we all kind of we're kind of connected to our jobs in that way. Like we kind of have to show up for work.
Yeah.
So I never felt like that trapped feeling. And it's funny that you say that. Like as I be in law enforcement, I felt less like that I wanted to police other people.
Yeah.
Like I was in the job to help people,
Right.
to try to protect people against people who are trying to do ill will to other people. That was kind of why I did it.
Well, that's noble of you to be in the protected side and not the bossy side. So what?
But I'll tell you, it's an easy poison to drink.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. And we can see, I mean, I think that's a whole other thing, a whole other conversation of how law enforcement is looked at by a lot of people, because they're, the most publicized content out there is the negative side, right? Because we feed on that. And, people like you that really were there to do better, to protect people and to, do the job really, instead of what we see, highlighted.
It's definitely, I have a deeper understanding of law enforcement than I ever did. And I tend to I don't really want to delve into politics or anything like that, but stay more kind of in the middle than go off the deep end on one side or the other.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot of that. What do you think, what made you confident enough? Like, was there a moment, like you got a big job or something like that made you confident enough that you could say, okay, I am officially retiring, no more reserve, no more anything, and this is what I'm doing for myself right now? Was there like a moment or some kind of shift in what was happening?
Yeah. So that was kind of at the end of my job, because I had that job for a year after I left. I was a reserve for a while while I had the law enforcement software sales gig, I guess you could say. And but then I left the reserve and I was just in that job. And then I realized I had the skills and I was missing skills in a way. So I was taking, I remember I took like an online course where there was a guy in Australia who he helped, his question was, well, how are you going to get clients? Right? How are you going to get clients? Because I could do the work, but I was missing the whole sales and marketing side. So when I started working for this company, one of my jobs was I had to get on sales calls and do this over Zoom or, and it wasn't convincing people to buy the software. It was just convincing them to watch a demonstration of the software. And it was more phone than video. I just want to clarify that it was more phone than video. But once I was able to walk in that space and understand that space better, then I was like, okay, I could do this not for somebody else, but I could do it for myself. And I'm grateful to have had that job, but it really propelled me to get to this space.
Yeah, it's like fate intervened in a way of like your friend was like, hey, talk to this person, and now your missing piece was kind of given to you, and that now you understand the sales funnel and how to get your prospects to be clients. Is that what we're,
Yeah,
or
I
your
mean,
leads?
and that's the thing. And that's the thing. It wasn't like when then I literally, for that job, I mean, I had told the CEO when I was beginning, I was like, hey, I'm just here just to get to my business or where I want to go. I was there for a year. I was like, I do not want to be stuck in a job again.
Right.
And it was that was more dramatic in a sense where I woke up one day, I wrote a paragraph. That was my 2 weeks notice, and sent it to him. And I left them on good terms, and it was to my job now.
Yeah. Do you have any idea why that day?
So, yes, I got a contract, and I had been doing this before as a side job, where I would go to cheerleading and dance competitions and do IT work for them, because they were mainly transitioning from doing scoring by hand to by computers. So they wanted someone there who knew computers. Also, they wanted to implement a video system. Wasn't built by me, but built by somebody else. But I set it up, ran it, and put it away. You have to know some like technical skills in order to do that within IT, which I wasn't an IT guy, but I was able to do it. So I learned as I went, and and so the reason why I left then was I was going into that contract. So I knew I had a few months of doing that. Those jobs are over the weekend. And then during the weekday, I could focus more on my business. So that's why.
So you got that contract and you're like, all right, it's time. I put in my time.
Yeah, I'm good for a few months. Yeah.
And you still had your buffer.
I'm good for a few months. Still had a buffer. Yep. I still had savings, and then the once that contract ended, that was like the hardest time, because then I really had to find clients.
Right. But
and I was, yeah.
What's your favorite part about being a business owner now and what you're doing at this day and age?
The freedom to work whenever you want to. Like for me, like for some people, it's not like they don't care. They're like, oh yeah, I love doing the 9 to, or it's not 9 to 5 anymore. It's like 8 to 5. But I slept in this morning.
Yeah.
And it's Friday. I slept in this morning, and got up, took a shower, took it easy, and then I had the meeting with you. So like that, having that freedom of being able to delegate my own time, for me is incredible. Yeah. Like I love that. But I'll tell you this, it's also it's a double-edged sword, because now you have, once you have the time, the next like mountain, which I always work on even to this day, is scheduling.
Right.
And because I do have meetings that I have to be at certain times. I do have to do work, and you realize how fast the day goes especially when you're doing something you like. You get in front of a computer, it's like, all right, yeah, it's like 10 a.m. and the next thing I know, I turn around, it's already 5. Yeah. And I'm like, what did I even do today? So but it's great, because it's all about can you do it or not? Like if you drop the ball, like then there's no money, Whereas if you drop the ball at a job, your job might pay you. You'll still pay you. They may have a talk to you, but they'll still pay you. You know what I mean? Whereas, with this, if I drop the ball, I'm not getting paid. Right. So it's a double-edged sword. It definitely is a double-edged sword, but I love it. Like personally, I prefer this way more over the guaranteed, I guess you could say, paycheck. But you know what? It's not guaranteed anymore. I don't know if you have another question, but I could go on a tangent on this too.
Well,
it's
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, like, I feel like nowadays, like we said in the beginning, where, not guaranteed that you're going to be able to wake up and just go to your
Mm-hmm.
job um, every day, because there's not much loyalty anymore. People leave companies drop people
Mm-hmm.
at a hat, right?
Yeah.
A split notice. So nothing's really guaranteed. Me personally, I'd rather have skills that are valuable
Right.
that I could generate business on myself and have to rely on a
Right.
job to do that.
Well, and how cool is it that people are paying you to do something that you enjoy doing and that you've been crafting for your entire life, really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's incredible. Um, but there are challenges.
Yeah. What's
The
the
past
worst
few months
part?
have really the past few months have really been picking up in business, and all of a sudden I'm getting so many yeses. I have a lot of work piling
Yeah.
up. So scheduling, like I said before,
Yeah.
scheduling out when I'm going to do things, very crucial. And that's kind of the hardest part, is just balancing it all to make sure I'm giving quality, um, doing it on time, doing it when I say I'm going to be doing it, being realistic about my goals
Mm-hmm.
and when I could do it. Because you want to tell everybody, oh, I could do this tomorrow, I could
Right.
do this today, and I could if that's the only job.
Right.
But and sometimes people are kind of unaware, and they say, oh, well, this job would probably just take about like 2 hours, wouldn't it? And why does it take you 5 days?
Right.
Why is it you have a 5 day timeline on it? I was like, well, I have other work
Right.
that I have to schedule within that time as well, you
Yeah.
know. So so yeah, it's definitely a balance,
Yeah. Because
but
it's
I love
like
it.
you're being a business owner. Your only job is not just creating, right? You have to do all these other things that are not, the developing the websites and those kind of things. You actually have to be responsible with your time and get new clients and pay the bills and
Yes.
those kind of things. All the unfun things.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I don't know if you know this or not, but most recently, you remember my sister,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So I hired her part time
perfect.
to help me with project
Yeah.
management stuff.
And I think that's important too, knowing what you are willing to do and knowing what you need to outsource to other people, so that you can focus on the things that you like to do. I will finish this conversation with one last question, and I think it's helpful to
Sure.
people that are kind of in a job that they don't necessarily love. They can do it; it's fine. They're what you were like. Why am I having to tell someone I'm sick and get approval to do that? But they have this passion project that they're always working on the side, and that's a thing. Do you have any advice to them as someone that was able to take something that they've always been passionate about to turn into a business?
Yeah. I mean, it takes time. Um, if you want to go the business route, like you want to create your own business, definitely make sure that there's enough volume in business out there on that topic or whatever you're looking to do. Make sure take classes. Online classes are even great. Not, you don't have to. It depends, of course, on the field, but just taking an online class, paying for an online class, and learning that, being skillful at that, and then and making a plan, really making a plan to how you're going to do it, saving money, always have money saved on the side just in case it doesn't work out. And there's nothing wrong with trying and failing
Mm-hmm.
too. Like I want to make sure I kind of put that, like, there's nothing wrong with leaving or taking a break from a job, um, especially if you're in high demand now anyway. If people are going to hire you, and you could go, oh, I can get another job tomorrow with this company or whatever. Cool. And then you want to experiment, like experiment. Um, just make sure you have, you're secure in a way. I'm more cautious,
Right.
I'd say, than most. Um, and I feel now I'm more secure just having a way to generate money without an employer.
Right.
Um, and also there's a lot of other things that people don't think about, like
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, um, stuff like that. You know, there's so many options out there. Just kind of
Do your
don't
homework.
ask the question. Yeah, just don't ask the question and leave it an unknown. Like look up, ask other
Right.
people what they've been doing, like that were successful at stuff like that, and then and yeah, see what they did, and then you could start forming the picture
Mm-hmm.
yourself, because you have to see it. You really have to see
Right.
it. You just have to see yourself there before you go there.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like there's like two parts of that. There's the do your homework, do the planning, figure out what the steps are versus like this is the end goal. Like you got to get there. You got to figure out those steps, right? So there's that piece. And then I feel like your other piece of advice is like just try. Just do something, and if it doesn't work, iterate, try it a different way. Like get to the point in which something works for you that's within your space, right? That is valuable to others and obviously to yourself.
yeah, and make sure you're in a good position too,
Like
and like
financially?
you well you in your head,
Okay.
I guess you could say. You know, there's always that you have to work on yourself first before you can help
Right.
others. You know, I
Put
always
your
like
mask
to
on.
you have to put on your mask, your oxygen mask on first before you help others. I love that. You know, make sure you have you taken care of and squared away, because without you, you're not going to be able to help other people.
Are you
That
more
makes
of a
sense.
shoot for the stars, or are you more of a realistic goal setter?
Um, I feel like I'm a balance. Um, my business partner now, he really likes to shoot. When I met him, he was like shoot for the stars, and well, like I was more conservative, but then I've been more open to doing much more aggressive moves
Mm-hmm.
now, taking more risks now, and seeing if it works out. And if it doesn't, then we turn back, we plan, figure it out, and so I like to surround myself with people who have other kind of mentalities than I
Mm-hmm.
do, and and I'll hear them out, and see if I'm like, maybe I should be more maybe I should take more risks, or maybe I should, go out there like in
Right.
business, stuff like that. So yeah, I've just been always ever, really law enforcement has like taught me to just be more open to people and their
Mm-hmm.
ideas, and
And the
so that's helped me.
differences that we all have that actually can be valuable. That whole diversity thing is kind of helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I
Yes.
appreciate that you shared your story. I think, so many people are afraid to pursue their passions because, like we talked about, we grow up having this understanding that society expects certain things from us. And I think by hearing your story that like you were in a more traditional type career and you found a way to go towards something that's always been a passion of yours as a kid. So I think people listening to this will get little pieces of your story and be like, you know what? I'm just going to try. What's the worst that will
Yeah.
happen?
And being able to perceive what's going on now and pivoting
Mm-hmm.
as you go. Like, will I always be here? No. I could pivot to other types of businesses or
Right.
something like that. But I want to make sure that it's something that I like to do, and so don't be caught up in your the plan that you have for yourself. Always be open and listening to
Mm-hmm.
what's going
Yeah.
on, and open for
Yeah.
change.
You may have a plan and then life has another plan for you. And you have to be willing to just kind of go for that ride. I think it's the perfect way to summarize what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely,
Well, I appreciate
absolutely.
you doing this, my friend. I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Matt. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course.